Hello, welcome back everyone for this last session with the Blue Manager about communication and communities. And so this afternoon we're going to travel a little bit. We're going to go towards Australia, but a bit of Curacao, and also Mexico, Pemba, and going back also in France. I'm still here. I'm lucky enough to still have the same jury members as this morning. So we have Jean-Vincent Vieiragracia, Metropolis Côte d'Azur Nature Dive President. I'm also having Martin Colognoli. Oops. So biologist and artist, founder of Coral Garden, and also Guillaume Leport, which is project manager at Blue Seeds. So thank you again for joining us. And so we will start with the presentation of Ines, then we will go to Clémence, and we will have a little break and finish with Galatée. So I'm just going to say hello to everyone first. Like a lot of people online. So yeah, hi, girls, hopefully, yes, we have everyone. So we will start with you, Ines, how it will run every time. You have 15 minutes of presentation, and then we will have 15 minutes of questions. I will just add your slides, and you can start whenever you're ready. If you want to share your slides. Yes.
Okay, I'm starting. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and talk about my professional project that is digital communication development in coral restoration on the case of the Branch Coral Foundation. And first, I want to provide you with a little bit of context and background. I want to show you this slide. It nicely summarizes why coral are really important for us humans. And I'm assuming everybody in this room or in this room back there knows about coral. And if not, I will gladly elaborate in the questions later. But what's really necessary to know is, despite their importance, they are among the most threatened ecosystems on our planet. And the stressors are mainly anthropogenic, with a couple of exceptions. And now I want to take you to the location of my internship, because there used to be a lot of corals and they're really struggling. Come with me to Curacao. That is one of the ABC islands. So C stands for Curacao. It's in the Dutch Caribbean, and it's just located above Venezuela. It's a hotspot for biodiversity. It has 68 coral species, and two of the hard coral species are the Acropora palmata, the elkhorn, and the Acropora cervicornis, the staghorn. And they're both critically endangered and on the IUCN Red List. 95% of the staghorn were even lost due to the stony coral tissue loss disease in the Caribbean. It's probably also a reason why 4 reef restoration organizations are on the island, and most focus on the staghorn, and so does Branch. Now, let's talk about coral restoration. What is it? In 1960s, humankind noticed that coral are decreasing, and they wanted to look into how to stop that. And they looked into techniques. So one of the most successful active forms is the so-called coral gardening, which is also what Branch does. That means you take coral fragments that are either naturally fallen off or cut, and you put them in a nursery that can be on land or in water, as you can see here on the image from Branch on the left, in water. And once they're grown enough, which is for the staghorn approximately 6 months, they're planted back into the wild. So some scientists argue that this is just a drop in the ocean. However, I believe, and Branch believe, that this is a way to buy us and the corals some time until we find alternative solutions to really combat the climate crisis and combat the threats that the corals are facing, which is also why Branch was founded. And that brings me to my next slide. Branch was founded in 22 by Max van Aalst. He's a marine biologist, and it's based on the 3 pillars of education, community engagement, and of course, coral restoration. Currently, Branch is operating 6 nurseries with a capacity of 5,000 coral, and thereby restoring 300 square meter of reef per year, and that's a lot. So it's their mission to expand in 2023, which is why they need a bit more professionalized digital marketing and website. And that brings me to my next slide, because everybody's talking about digital marketing. But what is digital marketing? Digital marketing is spreading the message over digital channels that can be website, newsletter, social media, or app. And it's a cost-effective way, because traditional media are usually quite expensive. And we see that it works because I have an example here for you. It's a screenshot from the video of Christina Figener. She's a marine biologist and she focuses on sea turtles. And this video led to the ban of plastic straws. That's a plastic straw coming out of the turtle's nose. So, however, in the recent years, the algorithm changes by Google and Meta, they really prevented or made organic free advertising really challenging, which is why NGO operations need professional marketers or professional support to really reach their audience. So in the pre-project assessment, I looked at the digital marketing of Branch. I looked at their website, their newsletter, their Instagram, their LinkedIn. You can see a screenshot of the website on the left. So the website started off nicely with 200 visitors per month, but then really dropped because then we are here at 355 like max yearly, and that is really not a lot. And that might be due to the structure of the website and the information on it, because it's really not as good as it could be. The newsletter subscribers did grow quite nicely in 2 years, but there's a lot of potential there because the opening rate is really good. When we look at their Instagram, that also grew quite nicely. But again, if we are looking more critically, we see that there's a lot of gaps in the posting frequency. So there's really mountains and lows. And if we then investigate why that is the case, it's when volunteers or interns are on site. LinkedIn is very surprising because we have the highest growth, despite that there was only one post ever made by Branch ever. And that is super surprising. And I think that's because the interns posted about it. And that all this context brought me to develop my primary or my project goals. And I got 4 objectives. Are you guys still there? Because I can't hear you.
Yeah.
You're still there? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. I lost you there. Okay, so 4 primary objectives. The first one is dedicated to the concept. So both website and relaunch. I lost you again, but I'm just going to proceed. And the concept is really for the website and the content on it. And it was developed again with Max together and Matt Peck-Brantley, which is the agency of Branch. The second one is about content. And there we wanted to clearly establish a unique tone of voice and identity in the content to really show people that we see what they want and we give them what they want. Are you guys still here? Because I can't hear you again. So just wondering.
Yeah, no, Ines, no worries. I'm there. We will tell you.
Good. Good, thank you. Third, we wanted to put a focus on CEO and storytelling integration. So really get visibility, strengthen the story, and also get the technical features for SEO. And last but not least, I wanted to support them with the digital marketing in creating fresh, audience-relevant content for all the social media channels. That brings me to my secondary and short-term project goals. So the secondary were to adopt existable marketing templates, and that means not to reinvent the wheel. Really just take what we have, adapt it, make it a bit more fresh, and assist in the creation of new marketing materials. And I get to an example of that later. So the secondary goals that were the ones on site, I really wanted to be part of the day-to-day activities and also support the educational and outreach activities. So who was part of the team? The team, you can see here the core team with the fat arrows. So Max Van Elst was the project manager. Corne Klopper was from the marketing agency MP&B. Then myself as the intern, and Merlijn Jonas joined just the last 2 weeks of the internship, so he didn't participate as much. But there were other stakeholders. There were classical stakeholder analysis. I carried that one out, and I found 10 main stakeholders, and 4 were identified to be needed to be managed closely because they have the most power and impact on the project. And that was supervisor, so Max, branch board, other volunteers, and the partnering dive centers. And of course, for all of these, I developed an adequate management strategy to manage them, and I carried it out throughout the entire project. The entire project duration, now we get to that one. So it was 3 months. It started in April and went until June. So it just finished 2 days ago. And I had 5 milestones, 2 of which were in April, 1 in May, and 2 in June. And we had slight delays with some of the tasks, but we managed to finish on time. Now, if we start to look at the results of the project. So firstly, I assessed the status quo of the website, as I showed you before, but then I also did a questionnaire to see what people were thinking. So I wanted to reach more people and get more opinions on that, and it's also less time consuming than in-depth interviews. And what I found really reflected the experience that the marketing agency and I myself, from my work experience, had. So we were assured to go ahead with the initial plan that we had. And here on the right, you can nicely see that only 37% of the respondents used the website in the past month. So that's really not a lot. And it indicates also that it's not a good source of information. And based on that, I developed a relaunch concept. And first of all, a sitemap. So main navigation, sub-navigation, which pages do we need? And also very detailed technical description where we had content element per site. So really what was on a page, what it entails and what functionality should be, and even compared to other organizations, what we found and what we really liked, what we could maybe replicate in some sort of way. And with that, the primary objective of website content and relaunch concept was basically reached. But at the same time, I was parallel working on a rough marketing plan. And because in the talks with Max, I realized that the branch brand was not so clearly defined. So I thought, okay, if we really want to proceed with that, we need a better basis. And I created this marketing strategy with things like positioning, USPs, core values, so all that you need, and helped us to set the CEO basis and storytelling basis. So 32 pages of basis for future marketing. And now the thing that I think is most interesting here, and I have to switch my screen real briefly now and put the website on. Please just tell me if you see the website.
Okay.
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. So this is the new website. You're the first ones to see it. It's not live yet. And it's a test site, so you see all of this on the back. I think it's really great because it sets itself apart from other reef restoration organizations. It's not as static and restricted, and it's playful but very professional. So you see their elements moving. You see an impact dashboard, so really what we've reached so far. You see, I really like that one. You see this small coral turned into this big one. And you see the latest news. So all sorts of things here, the partners really nicely. And it's fully reflecting the branch spirit and the values and the story. So also the vividness of the underwater world, because it's always moving, it's always growing, just like branches. So I'm just going to switch again to the presentation. There we go. And yeah, with that, the primary objective 2 and 3 were basically reached with the website. And now let's look into the digital marketing, what we reached there. So here you see the profile grade of Instagram. On the left, you see it before. On the right, you see it after. So what you might notice is that on the left, there's nice pictures and everything, but there's no like common thread. It's all nice, it's a bit orange, it works, but here on the right, you see there's repetitive elements. There's colors that are repeating, and it's very like really a common nice note. And with that, we also increased posting frequency, and we also focused on stories and reels. As you can see here on the left, that are just common posts with the red rectangles. But if you look here on the right, we just have one common post and everything else was stories and reels. And that did get very nice results. So if we look here from April till June, we have increases almost everywhere. Unfortunately, we don't have June numbers yet, and that's because I just finished and we didn't have the final figures. But what I can tell you is that unfortunately, they really did drop. And I think that's an important learning here. First of all, what I noticed is that the Instagram algorithm was changed late May, early June. So there's nothing we could have done about that. But what it also teaches us is that digital marketing is really, it's a very fluid process. It's always optimizing, it's always improving. It's not just something you set there, like you create a website and that's it. That's not how it works. It really needs constant optimization. So something that might have worked last month might not work next month. And below you see a poster that I created on site for the dive centers to really show them what we were doing. And with that, also primary objective 4 and secondary objectives were reached. Now let's look at the short-term objectives. So yes, I was 6 weeks on site. It was really great. I did a lot. I was fully immersed into Branch. I collected donations, we can see here. I was part of the educational and outreach activities. I built nurseries, I cleaned nurseries. I took part in many dives and learned a lot about coral ecosystems. And if we look at the financial aspect, so the income of Branch is roughly 50,000 this year. We have a variable cost of 8K, and the internship only cost them 500 euro. So the remaining cost of 41 they can use for their salaries, overheads such as the office rent and stuff like that. So if we then look at the website and the development, all the services around it, what they got for it is it cost 35,500 euros. So something they would have never been able to cover with their income. And this amount was fully covered thanks to the generous pro bono contribution of the agency and myself. So I think they got a really nice deal. Let me check the time. Yeah, we're good. So assumptions and obstacles. Yes, there were some risks identified with the project. For most of them, the probability was low. But for 2 of the highest ones, we see lack of access to the supervisor, and the lack of availability of the agency, and PNP stands for that, was one of the highest. And that actually did occur. And I'm glad we had plans for that in place because as I said, as you saw on the milestones in the beginning, we did have a delay. That was not only because I was looking more into the marketing strategy, but also because we had to build 2 nurseries, and that was not on the plan. It was just, I mean, it was good because we had to build the nurseries and we got a new customer. But then again, I didn't have my supervisor as closely with me as I wished. But thanks to the plan in place, it worked out fine. So personal impacts of the project. I obviously learned a lot about coral restoration, especially coral gardening, and improved my diving skills. I'm an advanced diver now. I learned about NGO operations and marketing, and how the communication in the NGO context is more difficult, and the challenges what there are. And of course, how important networking and stakeholder engagement is in this context, and that they really are the ones helping you out in some situations. If I look at the impacts for Branch, they got a new website, they got new opportunities, they've strengthened their relationship with stakeholders because they can represent them nicely on their website, and they got their marketing activities assessed, and even some ideas for the future. They strengthened the brand image, trustworthiness, and hopefully donation. According to research, trustworthiness is positively correlated to donations, and they got some additional help on site. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I hope you visit Branch Coral Foundation in the future, adopt a coral or donate. It's going live on Tuesday. And yeah, I'm happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you, Ines. So of course we will have questions for you, I'm sure about that. And I guess I can give the floor, if you want, to Martin maybe.
Yes, thank you, Ines, for the presentation. I have 2 main questions, but the first one, I will divide it in 3.
Okay.
So you worked on marketing, right? On marketing of this NGO. So
yes.
Marketing is made to show what is the NGO, right, to the public. So I would like you to tell me about like in a short, what's the mission of Branch?
It's their mission to restore the coral in this area of the Caribbean, and in the future also to expand, and really focus on education and community. So it's not just restoring, because there are organizations out there that just restore but don't include the community. Okay. But that's why I'm sorry to interrupt you here, because I don't feel like this is just communication and marketing to the end consumer. It's also to the community, and that's what makes it a bit different to me.
Okay, so but in your presentation you talked about the general public, right? You didn't talk about raising awareness locally. You talked about
oh yes, of course. I mean, for me that's interconnected, because I mean a lot of people that visit our website and social media are the people locally. We can see that in the analytics. So I think it covers all of them.
And what are the core values of Branch? If you had to tell like 3 core values that you want to show, what would it be?
Flexibility, inclusion in terms of community, and maybe growth. Yeah, growth, definitely.
Okay.
Growth.
Okay. And what's the vision on like 3 years, 5 years? What's the vision of Branch?
They want to expand to the entire Caribbean. They want to also build a lab where they can have some PhDs there and do some more research and also expand on other species for sure.
Okay. Okay. So they want to expand in all Caribbean, right?
Yes.
Different islands. Okay. Okay. So this was part of my first question. And the second one is marketing also is made to help the NGO grow, like financially, maybe, I don't know. But you said it at the end, Adopt a Coral, but you didn't talk about Adopt a Coral before. How do you communicate to finance? How your marketing will help to finance the NGO, or maybe it doesn't, but that's my question.
Yeah, I think the whole website like the way we designed it and the user journeys is made in a better way to create donations. And it's really like to create a funnel to make them donate or adopt a coral or engage in some other way, because there's so many other ways you can engage, you can volunteer. But that is the way I see them generating donations, because before it was really hard to find even the button to donate. And it was quite complex to do it. And this way you really have some nice little routes to get there, and also get you thinking and really realize, oh, I might want to donate because it makes sense.
Okay, so it's part of the strategy also. It's to make donation.
Yes.
To make donation.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's the overall goal, to increase donations. So why do we even do marketing? We want to, of course, grow and get more donations, and we can only grow. We're an NGO. We can only grow if we get more income, which is sadly mostly due to donations.
Okay. So thank you, Ines.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I can give you the floor, Jean-Pierre, and we'll finish with you.
Thank you for this presentation. Do you have some some example of other NGO in the Caribbean who restore corals?
Yeah, there is Reef Renewal Bonaire and Reef Renewal Curacao, and then there's also Secor. So basically they have, there's also a very, very small one, but they're not very active. And they're the main competitors, but they have a completely different approach. Like Reef Renewal, they don't do as much community engagement. And I think that's really what sets Branch apart from the others. So, and also they are part of a bigger organization. So Reef Renewal has different parts, like they have Bonaire, they have Curacao, they have it, I think, all over the world. And then Secor is also a very big organization that's operating all over, and they have different means and they have different goals. So I feel like also with the website, we managed to set ourselves nicely apart from them.
Yeah, because my next question was about the differences between you and them, and how. Yeah, so why I will donate to you and not to them?
Yeah, because of the community engagement, and that's really nicely represented on the website, because all the routes go together. I think I can share once more the website. We developed a tagline here which says "Grow reefs together." And that's really, it keeps on repeating together, 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 because it only works together. And that's not only the community on site, but like all of us have to work together. And there's also a super nice page about just community. I can share that one as well, if you like. There might be some bugs in there. Sorry about that. It's not going live yet. But we talk about our extensive partner network. So we have a lot of local partners. We have a lot of house reefs. We have 6 house reefs. And so our community is what makes us succeed. We have educational partners and donation partners. So it's really this communication, this community aspect that sets us apart. Because if you look at the page of Reef Renewal, it's there, but it's in the background. And also the whole education thing, this is something that Max, our director, does a lot. And also we do. And that's super important, I feel.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And do you search worldwide some other example of NGO?
Yes, of course.
To inspire our work?
Yes, absolutely. So the benchmarks was coral guardians and coral gardeners. And we feel that we set ourselves apart quite nicely from them as well, because one of them has a very dark and very corporate style and very like high-end photography, and that's just not us, that's not Branch. And we looked at some elements that they have. So this impact dashboard that you saw, this is something we actually copied from Brief Renewal, and other items, and also in the donations page is something that we looked at other competitors worldwide, which we really liked, and we thought that might really work quite nicely.
Okay, and my last question was about Instagram, your Instagram strategy. So you said you're gonna change about the colors, about the aesthetic aspect, etc. And you observe the best topic to have the best view in statistic. So
yeah,
the main topic to develop to have engagement or.
Yeah, that's a super good question because it changes a lot. But what we also got from the website questionnaire, because I also asked questions about social media there because I was curious and about the newsletter. And what we found is they really like background stories and funny stuff. And that's maybe brings me back to the question of Martin. I think that's because a lot of them are locals. They like, they know Branch, like they know them personally, and they like kind of connect that way with them to really like the fun part. So we had this video about the new currency in Curacao, where we showed like the currency. You can check it out on Insta, it's really nice. And we copied that from the Maldives, because the Maldives did that with their currency. And that one went through the roof. It really worked super great. We did 3 parts of that and really showed that we have now the new currency and it's connected to our underwater world. And so these approaches to like jump on viral trends worked for us. And then also like fun things. Of course, we try to mix it up with educational stuff, but if you ask what really worked the best in the last 3 months, I would say this, to be honest.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks. Guillaume?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Ines. Just 2, maybe 3 quick questions. I want to come back on last question from Martin.
Yep.
So you were talking about your strategy to increase funding and donation. I don't know much about communication, but is it possible to link? Are there some KPIs to link the increase of views on social media and the increase of donation? Is it possible to quantify that or?
Absolutely. I mean, what you can, if you create funnels in Google, if you like set up Google Analytics and then you create conversion, it's so-called conversion funnel because it's when the user converts, which means he donates, and then you can exactly track how much comes. And I mean, what we can definitely track and see is we see how much donations we got via the website before, because they mainly only came through the website. And now we will see how much we get now. And that will give us an indicator of how successful it is, and also give us, what I said before, ways to optimize it, because it's a process. It's really not like we created this, now it's going to work. We don't know if it's going to work. We think it's going to work and we have a strategy behind it, but if it doesn't, we'll just have to adapt on the go.
Okay, thanks. And you were also talking about the importance of working with local communities in the strategy of Branch. If I am making a donation, let's say of 100 euros, do you know, and will I be able to know how much money is going to concrete activities of restoration, how much money is going to education, how much money is going to the salaries of people from Branch? Is it possible to have this information?
Excellent question. I can show you the website again because I love that feature, but it's like there's some errors still on it, so please bear with me. So what you can see is here, I think I saw that at Coral Gardeners, I'm not sure. So basically what you see is if you spend this amount of money, that's where it goes to, or that's what you can reach with it. And so if you adopt a coral, it's just like in this area. And the more you spend, the more you can get for it. And that's one way of seeing it. And even if you adopt the coral, you would get updates on the coral if you wanted that. So that's a way to see it. And then, of course, I mean, what we have is the financial report, which we are which we need to have the tax status that we have. So you see that, but absolutely directly from endpoint to start point, no, that not, but you see that. And I think that's already pretty nice to see that you have a contribution and where it could potentially go to.
Okay, thank you. And last question. So you said you finished 2 days ago. What's your plan after that? You want to keep on working with branch? You want to work on communication with other? What is your plan for the future?
Oh, great question. Well, if I could, I would definitely stay in the coral field. I mean, I fell even deeper in love with it, to be honest. And I feel there's so much to be done there. So right now I'm looking into opportunities in other organizations that are a bit bigger, because branch is really very small. And yeah, that's what I would love to do in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, we are on time, right on time. I don't know if you want to have a last comment, no, all good. So I will just share, because there was a lot. Yes.
I have one. Yeah, Ines, can you tell me about the local communities? Who are the local communities? What is it like? Who are those people?
Yeah, well, also excellent question. Thank you, Martin, for that. There are, first of all, the people who live there and go like diving or snorkeling. They're also the dive centers, because they're usually the reef owners. So they own the reef and they're basically our customers, because they pay us to set up the nurseries. Then, of course, we have the educational partners like the schools or kids rangers. And we have partners like restaurants. We have all sorts of partners, because there's a lot of restaurants on the beach. And they are all basically something or somebody we want to reach with that, because these are people that are directly affected. I mean, we know that coral reefs also protect the coastline. So if they're not there, it's a problem for them. So we really try to encompass them in the whole communication.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So yeah, a lot of people also online. So just like sharing with you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Everyone's like, yeah, we are really looking forward to your websites. And we have Agathe just like saying thank you, and then she's asking you a question now. Just like maybe to finish on that, if you
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I gave them the basis now. It's in their hands to really like continue with that. That is absolutely true. So like focus on the posting plan, really update the website. Not like I said, there's a trap here. Don't leave it lying here now, because just we build it really nicely. It has to be updated. So this is something I can just say also to small NGOs. It sounds like it's fun just putting a website there, but it's a lot of work, and it's continuous work. And then in general, for small NGOs, I think less is more. Also in terms of Instagram, what we nicely saw is we sometimes had 3 posts per day, and it didn't work. The algorithm didn't like it. So it's better to have like a couple of posts that are really good and that you really thought about, instead of just, posting away of things that are irrelevant, because the algorithm is going to say, no, that's not relevant for users. I'm not going to show it. So less is more, but quality is more important than quantity in all terms, I would say. Thank you for the question, Agathe.
Thank you. Okay, well, thanks again, Ines. Well done. And well, now it's your turn, Clémence, to take the lead. So I will just put you here. I will share your slides, and as you know, same instruction: 50 minutes of presentation, 50 minutes of questions, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to tell you a bit about my project that is reuniting social and environmental dimensions in marine protected areas. And I'm taking you in another place today. We're leaving Curacao to go towards Africa and towards Tanzania. Maybe one word before we get started. Why are social and environmental dimensions so important? In the last 20 years, it had become more and more clear that anthropogenic factors, so human interventions and human actions, are the main drivers behind habitat destruction and stressors on the environment, and that if we want environmental project to succeed, then we need social support, social changes, and that's why we need to reconcile both the social and the environmental part. Scientists have also proven that environmental projects that do not have a social dimension, that are not anchored within local communities, always fail. And that's why today we're going to have a look at the special case of the Peka Marine Protected Area, which is off the coast of Tanzania, on an island called Pemba, where I am currently located. And in 2005, the Tanzanian government decided to close the western part of Pemba Island to make it a marine protected area of level 6 of conservation, since it's a very biodiverse area with a very vibrant coral reef, mangroves, and a lot of key species. And since 2005, the government was managing it on its own, but since 2022, they have asked the NGO Blue Alliance to accompany them in co-managing the area. So Blue Alliance is a French NGO that is operating marine protected areas around the globe. So as you can see, there are some in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and the one on Pemba. And the strategy for Blue Alliance when they operate marine protected areas are fourfold. The first one is to have a scientific and conservation background. So the goal is to protect the coral reef, protect it from destruction, for instance, phantom fishing nets, to protect the endangered species, but also to make sure that the restrictions are being followed by the local community, that you have a real compliance by operating a team of rangers that are patrolling the marine protected areas day and night, but also to foster social and economic blue initiatives, especially with blue economy. And for instance, here on Peka, they have sea cucumber and sea crab aquaculture projects. And finally, the goal is really to drive development within the community, to reduce poverty, to create new job opportunities. And this is one of the cases that we're going to have a look at today within our project. Please have a look at Sabrina on the bottom left, which is one of the key players of our project. Since Blue Alliance has mandated me to conduct a socio-economic study within the marine protected area. Since the last 3 years, they have been monitoring the environmental impact of their action. So how is the coral reef being restored? What kind of species have started coming back since it has been established as a no-take zone? So what is the environmental impact? But there is very little known currently about the social impact. And so there are 4 dimensions that we are looking at within our study. First, the economic impact of the marine protected area. Is there an increase of the revenues of the local communities? For instance, if you have a no-take zone, the fish tend to become bigger since they have time to grow. And so when the fishermen fish them, then maybe they can sell them for a bit more value. We're also looking at the nutritional impact of the marine protected area. So do people eat better? Do they have better intakes of protein? We're also looking at the social impact. As I was telling you, the goal is to foster new job opportunities, but also trainings. And Blue Alliance has organized, for instance, swimming sessions, diving lessons for the community so that they could access jobs such as rangers. They have trained them, for instance, on sustainable fishing practices, etc. And people from the community that were not traditionally working in marine-related fields, for instance, women, have now jobs within the marine protected areas. For instance, some of them have become rangers, so on the boats, making sure that the fishermen are being compliant with the rules. So we're also looking at the social dimension, especially for women. And finally, one of the questions we're asking is how the relationship of the community with their environment, whether it's the marine environment or in general, their surroundings, have changed since the conservation efforts have started. So this is one of the main goals of the study. First, understand what is the link between the social dimension and the environmental dimension. Second is to understand what is the special case for women, what is the impact we've had on them. And then the goal is to kind of create a blueprint for a Blue Alliance, since there are also a marine protected area in the Philippines and one in Indonesia, for which we would like also to conduct this kind of social study. And finally, the goal is to create this blueprint so that in the coming years, we can keep on updating the results to see the change and how, with time, the impact of Blue Alliance is evolving. So for this study, there were quite a few risks, as you can imagine. One was, how do we ensure that we have enough participation of the local community? Will they want to participate? How do we make sure that we have a representative data set? The second risk that we had is how do we collect those data? Do we do it orally by a written questionnaire with an online questionnaire? So how do we guarantee an efficient data collection, but also an exploitable data set? And finally, how do we have reliable, credible, and scientifically, reliable results of the study? So there were, as you can see on the right-hand side with the mitigation plan, there were quite a few initiatives that we have started. First one, as you can probably guess, I am not yet Swahili speaker. So we decided to co-conduct this study together with Sabrina, which is the woman I showed you earlier on in the slides. As she is from Pemba, she knows the culture, she knows the community, and she's Swahili speaker. So we created together the questionnaire, and she's the one leading the interviews. We have also decided to provide a small incentive for the participants to encourage them to join the study. Of course, it was also a debate. Where do you put the line on the incentive so that it encourages people to participate, but it's also the right amount, let's say. And we also worked very closely with what we call SFCs and Shehia here, which are the equivalent of the deputies or maybe mayors of the local communities. So they created the link between our NGO and the community when we needed help to find the right participants. We also decided to have an oral questionnaire instead of asking them to go online or giving them a written questionnaire. So that we could conduct two different types of interview. One more in-depth, long interview where we could really dig deeper into the question to really understand the answers of our interviewees. And then a second type of questionnaire that is a bit shorter, asking similar questions but a bit less in-depth to validate the previous result or mitigate them if we get different information. And finally, we also really wanted to be sure that we have a representative data set, and that's what we managed to build. So here you can see on the right-hand side a map of Pemba, and in the gray area is the marine protected area. And so we decided to survey communities within 3 different towns or villages. In the north, in Makangale. On the island that you can see, it's called Fondo, and then within the mainland, it's called Chake Chake. And those 3 zones have different specificities. Some are hotspot for sea cucumber aquaculture, other for seaweed farming, other have a lot of fishermen communities. So really, we have different angles, let's say, for the communities to approach the marine protected areas. And we interviewed or are interviewing 45 people within 6 different population groups. So we have some working in aquaculture, some fishermen and rangers, but we also have 51% of our interviewees that are part of the community. So either as a, let's say, political figure with the SFCs or directly within the community. We also managed to create a representative pool by having parity between men and women, which is something very important for us since we have, let's say, our eyes also on the impact on women. So with this data set, we also needed to create financials since we needed to be able to pay for our respondents, to our interviewees. And when we look at the project, there are 3 main groups of costs. The first one are directly linked with the logistics of the interviews. So what kind of allowance do we provide? We offer a bit of a higher allowance for the long interview since we're asking for a bit more time from the interviewees than for the short. But also we need to pay the, let's say, the political figures that are helping us set foot within the communities to pay for their time and their effort to connect us. There's also quite a bit of transportation involved since we have to go to all of the villages to conduct our interviews. And for this, we also had to create a budget. Most of the drive we're doing ourselves with the motorbikes from the NGO, but sometimes we also need to use, let's say, external riders, which we call bajaji, which is the equivalent, let's say, of a tuk-tuk, but here on Pemba, it's called bajaji, to take us to the most remote places. And finally, there were also quite a few expenses linked to personnel costs. So to have a dedicated intern for 4.5 months, which is myself, and then the time allocated by the marine scientist, Sabrina, to participate within the study. There are, let's say, 3-4 different groups of stakeholders that are directly touched by our study and that have different impacts. The first one are the participants of the study, which play a crucial role, as you can imagine, in the success of this study. So they had the bigger impact, getting them involved, getting their trust also to give us their opinion. We also have the board of management of Blue Alliance, which is one, making sure that the method that we are following is scientifically accurate, but also giving us the go in the way we are going to proceed. And finally, they're the main recipients of those results, since they are very interested in understanding the social impact and not only the environmental one. And then we have also grant organisms or investors that might be interested about the results, want to see what the Blue Alliance is doing there and how are we planning on improving, let's say, the positive impact and mitigating the less positive ones. And finally, we have the Tanzanian government, which is also a key stakeholder, since they might be interested in understanding how are we interacting with the community and what are the upsides for the community. So where are we now? So the interview is still running. We have completed now 51% of the data collection. We have interviewed approximately 22 people up until yesterday, and we still have 20 to go next week. The main phases of preparation of the studies have been conducted when it comes to choosing the right methodology, when it comes to creating the right data collection framework. And the next steps, once we are done with the interviews, we should be done by the 12th of July, will be the data analysis, establishing also a report, which will go into the detail for each question, what did we understand, and to give really an in-depth understanding of the feedback from the community. And finally, we will have some lessons learned with the team to try to understand what we can improve, what went right, and how we can best conduct this kind of interviews for the future. I wanted to show you some results. So these are very intermediary, so please be careful when you're going to interpret them. By the time I made this slide, we had interviewed 11 people. On the right-hand side, you have a description of the data set. So we had seven men, 4 women that had responded. When it comes to the villages, it was mostly Fundo and Makangale, so the northern part of the map. And finally, we had mostly people working directly within the MPA, so either with fishermen, rangers, or in aquaculture. So some of the questions that we are asking them here, you can see 4 of them. One, would they say they are earning more than 2 years ago? For now, it's a straight yes from the community, explaining us that they are fishing more fish, that they have also bigger catch. Another question we asked them was, did they observe any change in their occupation within the last 2 years? And here we're looking at, or we're hoping that they would give us a bit more social aspects, for instance, the kind of gear they need the kind of training they need for their job. Do they have different colleagues? So for instance, male and women, did their relationship with the community change? So here, the qualitative answers are very essential to understand the statistics, but most of them are responding with regards to their revenues, or they're really explaining to us that the relationship to the community has changed since the Blue Alliance staff is organizing a lot of awareness reunions within the community. We have more and more people of the community supporting the MPA, understanding the job that is being done. And so it creates, let's say, a positive interaction between the MPA staff and the community. We also asked them about their nutrition. So they're explaining that they're eating much more fish than they are eating meat in their plate, but also that they are finding more and more fish within their diet, that they're turning more towards fish product than they are turning towards meat. And finally, we have asked them how do they perceive the establishment of the marine protected area for themselves and for the community. And we have had either let's say, stayed the same responses, or they have told us that the presence of the rangers, the job that is being done has had very positive impact on the community. For instance, one of the respondents explained to us that maybe they're not working with the MPA, but since the rangers have boats and are going around the area, they know that they can rely on the rangers if there is anything that they need, since they're doing also a very close job with the community. So these are the really intermediary results. We should be done with the analysis by end of July. So I hope I can tell you more a bit later on in the future, but at least that gives you, let's say, a sneak peek in what we're doing here on Pemba. Asante sana. Thank you for your attention.
Well done, Clémence. Cool. Okay, so let's open the floor to the question, and this time I will go then with you, Guillaume.
Yes. Hi, Clémence. Hello. Thank you for your presentation. I have two questions regarding the methodology and the survey. I'm very interested about it because my first job 12 years ago, I was working for Nicolas Pascal. He was my first boss. And I was doing this kind of socio-economic survey in French Polynesia. And can you tell us more about the methodology and the questionnaire itself that you are using? And are you using open question? Can you tell us more, please?
Yeah. Yes, I don't know, Crystal, if I can show on my slides. I don't know if you see them. I added some slides showing the questions. So I don't know if you want to go in depth. You have the questions written both in Swahili and in English, but maybe to answer. So we are following semi-structured interview and semi-conducted. So we have a lot of open-ended questions so that we can give them as much space as we can to answer. And the goal is also in the way we ask the question to not bias the answer. So we're not asking what are the benefits of the marine protected area, but rather how has the marine protected area impacted you and your community, to give them as much space as possible for positive and for negative responses. And we have structured the interview then within 7 parts. So I didn't put the first part, which are demographics information. The survey is anonymous. We're not taking their name, but it's mostly whether it's male, female, married, unmarried, single, how many people do they have in their household, what is their main source of revenue, whether it's related to marine activities or not. And then we're asking them really broad questions, for instance, to describe their increase of revenue. If they can give a percentage, it's better. We understood very quickly that they do not want to give a fixed number, but they're more comfortable with percentages. So we also had to adapt a bit the questionnaire with the first 2, 3, 4 interviews to understand how they were responding. We're also asking them, for instance, for skills and opportunities, if they had any training in the last 2 years. And for us, so when you see that there are boxes, it's for us. We're not asking those questions. They don't see these pages, but we have a bit areas in our mind. For instance, if you look for the skills and opportunities, we are thinking about diving, we're thinking about swimming. So here, question 25, fishing techniques, but some of them might just answer, oh yes, I went to an English lessons, or no, I got 0 training, and that's fine by us. We're just keeping this for us for data analysis.
Okay, thank you very much. And you were talking about the different bias that you could have during while conducting the survey.
Yes.
And I remember from my own experience that I struggled a lot with this kind of bias. I remember, for example, I was doing a lot of interviews with tourists in the MPA, and they knew that I was working for the MPA, so they tend to give me the answer that they thought I was willing to hear. And you are saying that, if I understood correctly, that you are giving some incentives, of some financial incentive to the people, and also they know to some extent, I guess, that the people that are interviewing them are related to the MPA and to Blue Alliance. I don't know how the community is structured and what are the links in terms of organization of villages and communities, but what are the kind of bias that you think you can have, and do you have a specific strategy to mitigate or reduce them as much as you can?
Yeah. So 3 dimensions. The first bias that I was thinking about from the get-go is we are 2 women interviewing men and women about the impact on women, the changes of social roles, etc. So I didn't show you, but on the last part of the questionnaire is really how would you describe the traditional role of women? How would you describe the traditional role of men? And you have 2 women in front of you asking you this question. So that might create a bias. But when we were deciding who would conduct the interview with me as a Swahili speaker, I found that it was less of a bias to have 2 women rather than have a man asking a woman this kind of question. But that's my take. What I would assume would make more sense. Then about the money, you're right, for the incentive. So far, we had only 2 respondents where it was clear that they didn't have a lot of interest with speaking with us. And it felt like they were just here for the incentive because they kept repeating, but I'm being paid, right? And we're like, yeah, but can you tell us about traditional role of men and women? And they didn't really mind. So for this kind of answers, then there's not a lot we can do. They still participated. We got some answers. It's probably not the best, but that's why we have 50 people or 45 people we're interviewing, so that this gets lost a bit in the mass. And one of the last topic is, do they tend to give us more positive answers because we're from Blue Alliance? We had quite a few people that were very vindicative against the MPA, and they had no problem telling us about that. So I think it's a two-way street. We had some people telling us how much they dislike it, how they saw some kind of exodus from some of the fishermen from their community that would rather go fishing somewhere else than change their fishing nets. We had some cases that went to Kenya, for instance. So we're trying to understand that. How is that more beneficial for you to change country rather than change your fishing equipment? That sounds much more expensive. So this is the kind of information we still get because they're not happy about it. And when they hear that we want to know their opinion, they're happy to share it. So
Great.
this, we have a bit of everything.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Guillaume. Martin, you're mute. We can't hear you.
Yes. So thank you, Clémence, for the presentation. I wanted to know, because it wasn't clear, like who is financing what? Like, you know, the MPA, the Coral Conservation Program, and the questionnaire. Is it Blue Alliance? Can you tell me more about where this money comes from and what does it finance?
Yes.
Please.
So for this study, I have to say I'm not very privy to the financing of Blue Alliance, but I know we have investors, external investors that are allocating a budget for the MPA. I think the budget for the MPA is been set every year, but this I do not know what is the envelope and how it is split coming from the different investors that we have. And when I asked about the budget for the study, they gave me a certain amount in Tanzanian shilling, and they told me design it so that it fits within the budget, and that's how we define the incentive, etc. So we have investors, and now they have set up what is called Aqua Hub, which is the for-profit part of Blue Alliance for the aquaculture of sea cucumber and sea crab. And I am not sure that this part, for instance, is financing the activities of the NGO. So this for me is a separate business.
Okay. And what about the interview? When you go to interview, so it's not, you are not going to interview, right? Local with locals, right? But
I participate, but I don't speak to them.
But you don't speak to them, but you are here, right? You are with them, okay. And when you go to interview people, or the local go to interview the local, is there like, do they have the information at the moment they get the interview, or there is something like in before, like months before, they know that they're going to be interviewed, or?
No, they don't. So what we do is every second day, we go, let's say, in the field to conduct interviews, and the other day we do data intake on the laptop. So generally the day where we're doing data intake, we call one of the members of the team who is called Omar, which is responsible for the relationship between the community, so the Shehia and the SFCs and Blue Alliance, and we tell him, tomorrow in Fondo, we need to speak with 5 people from the community, 3 male, 2 female, can you help us? And then he calls the deputy, the mayor tries to find people. And on the next day, we meet up with them generally either in front of someone's house or in the small office of the Sheha or of the SFC. And they have no clue what they're being interviewed about. They know that there is a small incentive. And what we do during the interview is, so we introduce to them the study. We explain that it's anonymous, that we're speaking to 50 people, that there's no right and wrong answer. A bit, let's say, the traditional introduction. We also record the interview. So we ask them, of course, for their agreements. We record what they say. And I also take some videos and some pictures during the interview. They are always willing to, or they are always able to opt out if they don't want to. But most of them are actually really excited about it, and they kind of like the process.
Okay, and what's the main goal of those interviews? Like when it will be done, you will have results. How are you going to use those results? What will it be for?
I think there are several goals. The first one is to take the temperature of the link between the community and the marine protected area and how they perceive the project. So if all of the answers tell us that nutrition has gone low, that they cannot fish, so they do not eat, that they are incredibly unhappy about the MPA, then it's a big signal also for Blue Alliance in the way we're managing the zone. For now, and hopefully, the results are actually quite positive. They are interested in the way the zone is being managed. Some of them tell us from the start, I didn't like it, but now I kind of see the benefits because now my nets are more filled. So they're pretty honest about the fact that at the beginning, they didn't even understand what was happening and why they had to change their gears and why they were boats patrolling and telling them what they could and could not do in their own waters. But they're kind of understanding this. We're also observing a change in the way they're perceiving the marine protected area. Some of them are telling us, for instance, that they're making a link between less plastic in the ocean, happier reef, and more fish in their plates and in their nets. So they kind of push also within their own community for not dropping the fishing nets in the water and stuff like this. So first, the goal is for Blue Alliance to understand how the community is responding to the measures that they have put in place, but also to understand where we can do better. For instance, we had in Chake, so the zone that is in the south, we had a few respondents that told us they don't even know what the marine protected area is, they don't know what we're speaking about, or they have heard about it and apparently it's bad, but they can't explain to us, they just say it's bad. And so now we know, okay, so if we want to reach them and try to raise a bit more awareness, maybe we should organize some training, speak with their sheha so that they can just understand what is the link between the sea and their nets, etc. So it's really to kind of mitigate the negative feedback.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So,
my turn.
Yes.
Thank you, Clémence. I have a question about maybe the previous data that you maybe have about the opinion of the community about the establishment of the MPAs. Do you have previous data to see the change during the years?
Unfortunately not. This is the first year that we're doing this kind of study. So this will be our baseline. And that's why also we want to have lessons learned in the future so we can build from those results. But it's also a bit, let's say, the frustrating part. So that's why we're asking them, oh, do you see a difference between the last 2 years? And we're trying, let's say, to go a bit in the past also to understand the change. But I think this will be our first picture.
Okay, so and then you said that the results are not representative statistically.
Right now, the one I'm showing on the screen, yeah.
Okay, just right now, and then it will be representative?
Yes, because now, so on the results I showed you on the slide, you have 11 respondents. Most of them, you can see are rangers or fishermen. And these are people from Makangale, so the northern village, which are directly working, let's say, in the hotspot of Blue Alliance. So our rangers are located here. They work with this community. So these are people that are incredibly sensibilized to the topic of the marine protected area, and so that would tend to respond more positively. This is where we had the most trainings for diving, for swimming. So let's say this is a bit of our hometown. And then when you go to Fundo and when you go to Chake, that's where, let's say, the effect of Blue Alliance might be a bit more neutral, and that's where we want to go also, so that we can understand how the entire zone is being touched. That's why I'm telling you here right now, this is incredibly biased in favor of Blue Alliance. And let's see in the future, when we have 30 more people, what do they say?
Okay. And how do you know that the final result will be a representative data set?
Well, first I think on this slide I can show you. In the way we have designed the pool of respondents, you can see here that we have, for the community, 47%. Yes, 47%. And these are people that are randomly chosen by the Sheha, by the SFC, when they tell them, oh, there's a study, do you want to participate? So these are people that are tailors, school teacher. So these are really just people living from the community that might or might not have any link with the marine protected areas. So that gives us, let's say, a bit of a more broad view on the zone. So that makes it a bit more representative than just having fishermen that either understand the MPA or are just living the negative effect. Here we have the entire community that lives around the zone, has to buy the fish at the market. So this is a bit more representative. And this kind of balances out the people that we have from the fishermen, from the ranger, from the seaweed farming, from the aquaculture that are directly linked also to the MPA. Okay. So we're hoping that those results are, let's say, more representative of the entire community.
Okay. And last question. And what is the political thinking about that? Do they want to develop MPAs in this island, or?
You mean the Tanzanian government?
Yeah.
So my understanding is that they have established this for quite a while now, and they would like to keep it that way. Every 5 years, you have a mandate with an NGO that can accompany the government in the management. So my understanding is that the Tanzanian government wants to keep it. Now the question is Blue Alliance the one that will get the chance to keep accompany them and keep, let's say, shaping the way we're operating the marine protected areas, what kind of activities? I think that's the big question. So hopefully this kind of study shows that we're trying to anchor really marine conservation projects with the community, and to show the Tanzanian government that actually the locals are benefiting from it and are growing also with this kind of project.
Okay.
So hopefully, yes.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
From your fellow students? No? Okay, I'm just going to share. We do have some comments also, still people online, so just like Andrea saying like, yeah, seems that they're really happy.
Thank you.
So you don't have too much electricity breakdown?
Yeah, every day I was hoping that the Wi-Fi would hold, because the rainy season was supposed to stop a month and a half ago, and it keeps on going. As you can see, I have still wet hair. It's very humid, so let's hope we're going to have a bit of a stable weather soon.
So yeah, we have more coming up right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, perfect. Thanks so much. So yeah, we will be back. We do have a little break, and then Galatée will be your turn. You will be closing all this Blue Manager session. So we will be back live at 3:50 p.m. So just like, yeah, be ready around that. Thank you everyone for being with us. Stay with us because yeah, Galatée is going to talk about sharks in the Med Sea. You really want to hear about it, of course. Okay, see you in a bit.
Thank you.
So hi, we're back. So for the final presentation, it's going to be with Galatée. So just putting everyone back on stage. Also with me. Thank you, Ines, also for being still connected with us. We also have Guillaume and Martin from our jury members. So Galatée, yeah, you will have, as always, 15 minutes of presentation and then 15 minutes of question. I'm sharing your slide. You should be able to see that. And
yeah, and I've got, I think, everything I need.
That's perfect. We're ready for you whenever you are.
Okay, great. Well, let's go then. If I say shark, I'm pretty sure most of you see the picture on the left rather than the picture on the right. And that's normal because we have been fueled fear and misunderstanding of shark behaviors by pop culture and media for decades now, which has consequences such as public apathy or even support for harmful practices such as shark finning and culling, and also underfunding for shark conservation compared to more charismatic species such as turtles or whales. And I personally blame Spielberg for the decline by over 70% of the population of sharks and ray in the world over the last 50 years, and for the decline over 97% of large sharks in the Mediterranean Sea. And the little guy on the right here is actually a thresher shark. So it's an oceanic and pelagic species that lives in tropical and temperate water all around the globe. Its size varies between 3 and 6 meters when it's mature, with a caudal fin that can be up to 1.5 times the size of its body, and that's used to hunt because it's an apex predator. But despite all of that, there is today no recorded attack of that shark on humans. There are actually 3 species of thresher sharks, the pelagic thresher shark, the big-eye thresher shark, and the common thresher shark, and those 2 last species are the only one present in the Mediterranean Sea. It is a shy and vulnerable species, not well documented because it's pelagic, it's difficult to have data on it. It's considered vulnerable on a global scale by the IUCN and endangered in the Med Sea. And it's particularly vulnerable because it has a long reproductive cycle and it's an apex predator, so it's high in the trophic chain. It's mostly reported by bycatch in the Med Sea, but there is today no active monitoring or protection of that species. But it faces multiple threats, as I said, bycatch, but also unregulated fishing, habitat destruction and pollution, like all the inhabitants of the sea, which means that more than 99% of the population of thresher sharks of the Med Sea has disappeared over the last 2 centuries. It is, however, protected under several international legislation, such as the CITES, the Barcelona Convention, the CMS, and it should fall under the radar of some organizations that I listed here on the right that are focusing on sharks. But today, there is no active organization in the Med Sea or France that is focused on this particular species, which means that we have no structured data on population and capture. We have no dedicated campaign of public awareness and no specific scientific studies on that species, which has a massive potential for Rremed. So what is Rremed? Well, it's a local organization for the study and protection of thresher sharks in the Med Sea that is right now focused on France and the Western Mediterranean Sea. And I'm actually doing the feasibility study for that NGO, structured around 3 main axes. First, the scientific relevance of that NGO. The second one is the stakeholder engagement, because it's important to have collaboration. And the third one, is the operational and financial viability of that NGO in the long term. So, that being said, what are the objectives of Rremed? Well, the primary goal of that feasibility study are assessing the scientific relevance of focusing on thresher sharks in the Western Basin of the Med Sea, because without that, I've got nothing. Then it's to evaluate the operational and financial feasibility of creating that NGO long-term. Then identify and implicate partners and collaboration, as I said, and then identify risks and opportunity associated with creating that NGO. And on a secondary level, it's the creation of preliminary network of potential partners, assessing their interests, their capacities, and how we can bring to each other, establish their engagement and build that engagement strategy, and finally have an initial organizational and funding model for that NGO. So how do I do that in 3 months? Well, I've got short-term objectives. First is an extensive literature and data review to assess the scientific part, then identify contacts and implicate them with all the stakeholder metrics, study the legal and operational framework and the financial models. In terms of deliverable, the last one that I will have to validate my MSc is the final feasibility report that will include basically everything I have done. And all of that is to have that long-term vision of the creation of a small NGO that would be focused on the protection and advocacy of thresher shark in the Med Sea. Who is taking place in that? Well, first, let's talk about the stakeholders. So here you can see on the matrix, I've got 4 groups of them. The first one are the priority stakeholder on red here. They have high power and high interest in the project. So they have a direct impact on the quality and success of the study, and they have to be kept close, shall I say. And then you've got in orange the strategic stakeholders that have to be consulted. So you can see here Porco MPA and the Office Français de la Biodiversité. They also have a say in the matter, shall I say. And then I've got my peers, the NGO peers and the academic people that are engaged and that will help me to build something that is strong and solid, shall I say. And finally, I have in green the long-term stakeholders that right now for the feasibility study are not really taking part in it, but will have to be placed into my matrix on the long term and taken into account. And to do all that, I've got a very small team with me in the middle, Martin as my business mentor, Guillaume as my ecosystem mentor, and the MARRES team to oversee all of that and make sure everything runs smoothly. Now, in terms of timeline, I'm going to go very, very quickly on that. We are right in the middle, shall I say. And the first part in green, the setup and preliminary phase, is done. I'm currently in the stakeholder engagement and business assessment phase in pink here. And in the next month, I'm going to focus on the feasibility assessment and reporting to make sure that I have like good managing of my time in such a short amount of time. And speaking about short amount of time, let's talk about the preliminary results that I had in a month. So first, let's talk a bit about the operational viability, because to start a project, you need to have a map, you need to have a compass, and you need to know what you want to do. So I found the mission of Rremed, which is to find, to study, and to protect thresher sharks in the Med Sea. Why find? Well, because thresher shark, as I said, is an invisible species to scientific and institutional radars. There are very few observations, no monitoring, no protection measures. So Rremed's role is to be identifying presence and interaction zones, for example, and also to raise awareness. And then once we've got that, that foundation, we can study them to generate the knowledge that is needed for action, because there is no effective protection without understanding the species behavior, like feeding, nursery, where they are cleaned, and etc. And identifying the threats that those species has to face. And once it's studied, well, we can protect them. So we can protect it in its natural habitat and try to raise public awareness, maybe influence policy, reduce human pressure, and so on and so forth. So thresher sharks are a rare, a threatened, and underfunded, understudied, underfunded too, species, with the strong likability potential, because they are pretty beautiful animals and also with their no record on human attacks. And the Mediterranean Sea, well, it's because it's a sea that has very peculiar threats and pressure because it's a semi-enclosed sea with limited resource. The population of sharks here is declining at an alarming rate, and it has some beautiful things that we need to protect. It's maybe less glamorous than, say, the Caribbean or Indonesia, but it needs protection as well. So once that's said, I've got my 5 core values for this NGO, which are the scientific rigor and legitimacy, the collaboration, the ethics, obviously, the respect, and the resilience, and the 3-year plan as well in those preliminary results. I also did, in terms of methodology, a SWOT, which means that I looked at all the positive and negative and what I can control and what I can't control. So in terms of strengths, let's start with the positive. It's an NGO with a unique focus and a strong mission on a symbolic species, as I said. And I also have my personal expertise to help, because I have a strong scientific baggage, also quite a lot of knowledge in project leading background, and I am a scuba diver, and I've got some very good marine skills. And that NGO has ethical foundation and a flexible structure. In terms of opportunities, it's a scientific niche with a lot of collaboration, hopefully. There is funding potential for grants, for example, and it can appeal to the media quite easily. And also we are in a context of a growing concern for marine conservation. UNOC just stopped, but it's still clear in everyone's mind. So that's great to launch an NGO right now. But however, we still need data because data is really scarce. So we don't have a lot of initial data. I'll touch on that on the next slide. It's a new organization, which means that I have limited resource. I depend on external collaboration to launch, and the public is not aware that we exist. So right now I have no visibility. And finally, in terms of threats, well, the political and economic context is not great, and marine foundations may not be a priority. The grants are highly competitive. As I said, the species is rare, it's a shark, so the public may not be really interested in that. And also, there are some legal and organizational setbacks that can happen. So I'm very aware that it's not going to be a smooth sailing from there. But now let's talk about the scientific relevance of the project. So data is, not surprisingly, indeed hard to find. What I did here is I tried to plot every single record of thresher sharks in the Med Sea. And the data was collected from available databases on the internet, and also from academic contacts that I tested. So my sources are iNaturalis, Pelagis, and GBIF. And the Medlem people have kindly accepted to collaborate with me and have to be added. So you can see here, I've got only 60 points for both species from 1877 to today, which is clearly not enough. It's still good, but it's clearly not enough. There are more than that. And I want those points to do a species distribution model in presence to try to predict spatial distribution of thresher sharks in the Med Sea and to see where I'm going to dive to see them, basically. So that's ongoing. And finally, let's touch on stakeholder engagement. I had 3 engagement strategies for stakeholders: emails, interviews, and on-site. And it lend great results. 22 stakeholders were contacted around across my 3 main categories that I touched on a bit earlier. 6 academic answered with either data or insight or both, which I'm really grateful for. Fisheries were not so keen on collaborating with me because their data is highly confidential, but 3 NGOs are interested in collaboration, namely Aileron, Hélas Mauvaises Azores, and IC, so that's great. And I'm in an ongoing discussion with Porcro MPA. Actually, I'm going to see them just after that presentation, so they are quite interested in that as well. So overall, the results are quite positive and still needs to be continued. So I am going under 3 key assumptions to start that NGO. It's that thresher sharks are still present in the Mediterranean Sea and detectable, that I will be able to either partner with people or reach fundings to make sure that it's viable on the long terms, and that stakeholders are willing to collaborate with me. As you can see, the probability and impact of those 3 risks are quite high. So I've got some preliminary mitigation strategies, but it might not be enough, and I need to work on that really quickly. In terms of estimated cost, for the feasibility study, it's quite low. Most of it is devoted to travel, interviews, and mentoring costs, and a new laptop because mine was actually dead. So right now it's quite low, but it will go up, obviously, for funding the business and the NGO. As a conclusion, Rremed has been confirmed as viable. It addresses a critical gap in shark conservation. It's necessary. It has scientific relevance, the interest of stakeholders, and operational potential. But now I need to turn my vision into action. How? Well, developing a sustainable business and funding plan. Obviously, if I want it long-term, it needs to be operational. I need to formalize my partnerships and make sure that engagement is still going on. I want to draft a preliminary scientific publication and project proposal to make sure that my scientific legitimacy is starting from the very beginning. And also I need to outline the 10-year vision for growth and conservation impact to know where I'm going, even though I will have to modify it, I'm pretty sure. So as a conclusion, it's a high impact project, both in, well, not both, in scientific point of view, in a conservation point of view, in an institutional point of view, because we do have the gaps on thresher sharks. We need to improve their protection and shark protection in general, and it fills a structural niche that is quite nice to take, actually. And on a personal level, it helps me to build a very strong network and to develop expertise in fieldworks, in NGO planning, in business planning, and in fields that I would have never hoped to try. So it's really good for me as well. And that brings me to the end of my presentation.
Now you can hear me. Sorry. Thank you, Galatée. Sorry, I was mute. Well done. So I will open, of course, the floor to the question. This time, maybe starting with you, Jean-Vincent, then we will go to Guillaume, and we will finish with Martin because he was also following you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Galatée, for this presentation. I have a curiosity question about the movement of this species. Do you have an idea of the movement? The individual are there go to Atlantic Ocean also, to the Red Sea, etc.?
So that's something that is under debate. I think, for what I've read, there is a Mediterranean population of thresher sharks. They may have come from the Gibraltar Strait, but most of them are staying in the Med Sea, and it's a different population, let's say, from the one that you can find in the Indian Ocean, for example.
Okay, so okay, and do you have an idea of other NGO who work on this species elsewhere in the world?
Okay, so I know, for example, that in Malapascua in the Philippines, it's very renowned for their thresher shark scuba diving. So a lot of studies that I could find on thresher shark are either done in the Philippines, because Malapascua is the place, the cleaning station for thresher sharks. So you know they're going to be there, and you know you can study them there. Actually, I'm in close relationship with someone who did what's the word? Photographic studies, photo referencing of thresher sharks there. So there are studies done there, and there are also studies done in California, where you also have a population of thresher sharks. But to my knowledge, it's only scientific studies, and there are no organizations focused on thresher sharks in this part of the world.
Okay. And for the development of your project, what are the main problems that you have already to develop and to?
Two things. Data. Because I can't just go diving all across the Med Sea hoping to see a thresher sharks. I mean, it's stupid. They are living below 100 meters deep. So I'm not going to do that. But also, I as I said, I need to find where they are, where they come to be cleaned, where they nurse, or all those patterns, because otherwise we'll miss them. That's simple as that. And also right now, as I say, it's not even, well, it's a new NGO, shall I say. So I don't have the funding to do things such as eDNA, for example, that could be really interesting to know if thresher sharks are in a peculiar place of the Med Sea. Or I don't have funding. And I know by talking with other NGOs that funding is one of the main problems that NGOs have to face, because if you want to have scientific legitimacy, if you want to do scientific missions and not just citizen science, which is good, I don't deny it, but thresher sharks are not a species that can be it's easily identifiable, but it's not easily seen because, well, it's a pelagic species, so no one is going to scuba dive in the middle of the Med Sea, right? So you have to rely on other scientific methods that are a lot more expensive and have precise missions that are a lot more expensive. And I think that's why also it's a species that is not currently on the radar of other organizations.
Okay, and it is possible to put a GPS engine, you know, on some individuals to know
Yes.
the
Yes.
habitat.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's actually one of the three best methods to study sharks, and it's something that I would like to do. It does, however, imply the capture of thresher sharks. So something that I see that I mentioned, which is an NGO in Greece studying rays and shark, they work closely with fisheries. So when they have bycatch with fisheries, they use that bycatch to tag the sharks and release them, which is a great idea because, well, the shark is already there. You don't really have to put things into place. Problem with thresher sharks is that they have quite a high mortality rate once they are caught. Mostly, I'm not going to bore you with that, but it's all about the concentration of lactic acid in the tissues, so they fight. If they are caught in nets, they do fight and they exhaust themselves. So you can't really rely on bycatch to just say, okay, we're going to tag all the sharks that have been caught and then release them. And the second problem with bycatch is that the meat of thresher shark is actually quite tasty. So you have some, in France, we say vache de mer, but you have some thresher sharks that is sold on markets. I know that some Intermarché, for example, had been under firing squads from Sea Shepherds because they were selling shark meat and thresher shark meat when it's a protected species. And I also know that 1/3 of the swordfish in Italy is actually shark. But it's just fishermen are just taking sharks and cutting them and selling it as swordfish because people don't make a difference with the flesh. So it's something that is to be taken into account.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jean-Vincent. So Guillaume?
Yes, thank you, Galatée. I have a few questions about how you see the future of your NGO if everything is going according to your plan. First of all, you mentioned at the beginning a lot of French stakeholders, but you also mentioned Western Mediterranean. So what's your plan in terms of geographical scope? Do you want to start in France and then expand, or do you want to start from the very beginning in different countries? What is the strategy?
Okay, that's a very good question. That's something that I thought about. I would like to start in France and expand it. But I also know that like Italy, Spain, and Greece have some very interesting NGOs about sharks. So for me, I can't stay in France and do all the things in France because it would be very naive to think that, well, I will only explore MPAs and potential nursery sites in France. Sharks don't care about like geographical barriers. So I'm open to widening the scope. I just thought first focusing on a small scale and then opening up if it doesn't work.
Okay, so let's say that you can have all the money that you want. What is your plan for the next 5 years? What would you do?
That's a really good question.
I will not give you the money, of course, but let's
Oh, come on! Okay, so what I didn't touch on my presentation, okay, let me organize my thoughts. As I said, I want a real scientific basis on that because I think that's something that is important to have credible data to have. So I want to build scientific methods, to build scientific data collection and to have expeditions that have like meaning in terms of the scientific communities. But I also know that for it to work, so that's costly. First of all, that's costly. If I can have my own boat to go at sunset, before sunset to check the cleaning station, be my guest, and I'll buy a rebreather and I'll stay 3 hours underwater. That's fine. And on the second part, I also want to do pictures, to take pictures and to take films and maybe to do a documentary because we need people who can't dive for different reasons to dive with us. And what Cousteau showed us is that the underwater world is not well understood. But as soon as you put a camera underwater, as soon as you show things to people that can't dive or that are afraid or for one reason or another, then they start to get interested. Then they start to engage. Then they start, well, to be mad at the state of the underwater world. Then they start to care. So I think having a way to reach people, making a documentary, making short YouTube videos, making with good quality pictures, not just GoPro pictures, and be able to film those animals in their natural habitat would be great. And the third thing I would like to develop is some kind of high-end scuba diving partnership, shall I say? So for example, I think, let's say I find a cleaning station. I would like for trained divers to be able to dive on that site to see or study thresher sharks on that site and make sure that the species is respected, that the fauna, flora is respected, and have that developed as well, again, to make sure that I'm reaching people, to make sure that people that study those species can also access that, and to still have some outreach.
Thank you.
And also merch.
Thanks. I wish you the best for the NGO.
Thank you.
Okay, Martin, your turn.
Yes, thank you, Galatée. I've been following your work for a few times, so I think I let my space for Jean-Vincent and Guillaume for more questions. But it was really nice to hear your half work.
I thought it was a bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, but it was pleasant to listen to your presentation.
Okay, well, if you have any more questions, if not, no worries. Like on YouTube, I do have a lot of questions for you, Galatée, so be ready. I don't know, Guillaume, do you have a last question before I open the floor to the public?
Can you, I think I understood, but can you tell us more about the name you chose for the NGO?
Oh, yes, please. Okay, so Rremed is actually kind of a play on the word in French. So it means requin, renard de Méditerranée. Obviously, Rremed is to remediate, find a solution, heal something. And also I thought about, and I see Valérie ask the question, if thresher sharks are too difficult to study or just I need to expand again, it can also mean requin, Rremed et l'asmobranche de Méditerranée. So it has a dual purpose.
Okay, I had requin renard, but I didn't have the other ones. Yeah, great, thanks.
Okay, so I will just open the floor to some questions. You already saw some of them, but let's start with the first one. So from Andrea, just if you have more info about it.
So far, none. So far, no, I don't think thresher sharks have been tagged in the Med Sea. Most of the species that have been tagged are the species that are along the coast because it's easier. But I can be wrong, but I haven't found any literature on that. All I could find is reports of thresher sharks on markets, especially, for example, in Tunisia or Algeria, or sighting from people fishing. So that's what I could find. And I do think it's really important to tag them because they move a lot. They are species that are not territorial, so they do move a lot. They follow tuna, they follow mackerel, and also they may or may not have seasonal and mating routes, but we don't know because it's a species that is very, very elusive and that's really hard to tag. So it's something I would like to develop that if I could, without harming or distressing the animal too much, obviously.
Cool. Well, I'm just like continuing because Andrea is saying that maybe if it's not done there, she has some information for you. You can reach her, I guess. But think that in Galapagos and Cocoa Island, it's been done for the scientific part. I will continue then with just a few more questions. I have one also from Agathe. Also, like, of course, saying like amazing initiative, but just like wondering how they will get involved in these projects.
So Rremed, by their formal request, stays silent. CNRS, by their formal request, stays silent. So I switched to LinkedIn and going to pester people directly. I found their contact and I pester them, and it's a bit more easy like that. Porcro is really interested. As I said, I'm going to have a talk with the main manager of the MPA right now. They have collaborated with other initiatives before, so it's something that they are kind of used to. However, I have very little information right now. Like, do I need to be an established NGO to ask for a proposal? Do I need to come with a grant or finances? Can I use their boats, for example? Because simply, as I said, it's thresher sharks. You can see them at cleaning station between 2 and 3 hours before sunrise. So it's not where the diving boats are going out. It's not the kind of dive you can take people to make money. So you need your own boat, you need your own infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to get Porcro on board and to see what they need from me and what I can get from them to do that kind of studies. But I'm quite hopeful, I think.
Cool, thank you. And yes, the last one, so you saw kind of it already, but from Valerie asking if it can be extended to other pelagic sharks.
I think Aileron is already working on blue sharks and mako sharks. Great white, I'm not quite sure people are studying them, but yeah, definitely. I mean, if I can do some collaboration and learn more about those species, yes, by all means. I focused on thresher shark mostly for its likability. Okay, and I also like the underdog, but because blue sharks and great whites, they do still have that kind of fantasy, danger, alarm aura around them, and I think in the public eye it would mean a lot more work to make them likable, while thresher sharks look like they are perpetually surprised, and also they don't harm humans, so it's a bit easier in terms of media and public to make them likable and to make them interesting for a wider audience.
Cool. Well, thanks again. I think now I can share also, because there is also a lot of just to congrats you. So there is just passing them, of course. Or just maybe Gomantic tag, I guess, if you will remember some stuff from class with Ines, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. So perfect. Well, we are arriving at the end of all this session. So congrats again. Well, I guess to also all the Blue Manager. It's like it's over for you for this last session. Thank you online also for being with us, asking this question, being reactive. Thank you so much for the jury members to be with us also for these 2 days. And yeah. I guess we have to end now the session, and I guess I can tell you until next year for the Blue Manager, but it's not over for the Symposium. No, but it's true. I'll be just like for your information. There is a last session tomorrow morning also for the Science and Society. So it will start at 9 a.m. It will be about mechanism and models. So you can join us again online on YouTube. Again, thanks everyone, and see you.